tercera Juliet, y ahora viene con el segundo, La habitación prohibida. Todo lo que es Sasha, ¿no? Que es actriz, es cantante, hace DJ, fotógrafa, o sea, de Soderbergh, tiene una pluralidad que es increíble ver en una mujer así, todos estos canalitos que te puedes meter en su vida y descubrir cosas fascinantes. Y nos acompaña para hablar con ella Alejandro Rosas, que es historiador y novelista, es un gran divulgador de la historia, que también pueden encontrar aquí sus libros muy recomendables. Y pues bueno, nada, bienvenidos.
Muy buenas tardes, gracias por acompañarnos aquí este día. Yo creo que no hay mejor forma de iniciar la cuarta transformación que presentar a Sasha Grey. Tenemos aquí una autora, ya hizo la presentación Fernanda, pero yo me siento muy honrado de estar con ella. Ayer tuvimos, voy a chismear un poquito, la posibilidad de cenar con nuestros editores de Random, con Fernanda, con Ricardo Cayuela, y además es una gran conversadora. Y ahorita vamos a ponerla aquí a que nos charle y vamos a platicar de muchas cosas en torno a la novela, en torno a su vocación muy clara de escritora. Ya había estado aquí en Guadalajara, o sea que ya conoce, ya bebió tequila. Ayer cenó muy bien platillos mexicanos. Y bueno, yo estoy muy contento, insisto, de iniciar mi serie. Entonces, bueno, yo creo que es importante. No les voy a contar, evidentemente, la novela. No es como cuando yo presento mis libros donde al final todos se mueren. Pero yo creo que hay que acercarnos un poco a lo que es la novela erótica. Exitosa en su primer novela, esta es la trilogía, la primera parte fue La Sociedad Juliet, éxito mundial en 25 países, traducciones. Ya había estado aquí hace 3 años, me parece, o 2. Creo que regreso otra vez aquí. Aquí yo creo que todos los autores nos sentimos muy cómodos y bueno, desde luego la calidez de la feria habla por sí misma. Este es el segundo volumen y yo creo que hay cosas más allá propiamente de que es una novela erótica, pero es una novela erótica de las buenas. Es decir, a lo largo de la novela, cuando uno la va, uno se va adentrando en ella, la va paladeando, la va sintiendo, encuentra otros elementos, además propiamente del erotismo. Un erotismo que tú, Sasha, en algún momento dices que es como regresar al erotismo clásico. Y además que también escribes en un momento dado para las mujeres de tu generación. ¿Qué nos puedes decir al respecto de eso? Es decir, ¿por qué el erotismo clásico? ¿Cómo lo podrías tú plantear desde esa perspectiva?
I normally never do this, but I'm trying to find a quote, which is by Angela Carter. And she wrote a very interesting, here we go, I found it, okay. She wrote a very interesting book called The Sadian Woman. And this played a lot into my research and thought process in developing all 3 of these books. So this is a quote from Angela Carter, not from myself. But all art, which contains elements of eroticism, the pornography of the elite, contains the possibility of the same methodology. That is, writing that can pull a reader just as a woman pulls a man, or a man pulls a woman. So I think this is very important because it contemporizes erotica for women. So not just putting them in the same role that we've been used to seeing them throughout history. And so taking a step back, I wanted to write erotica that represented our times that was contemporary. And that's exactly what I feel classic erotica did. So it's not just about sexuality. It's a reflection on society, on modern society. So that's my inspiration in developing this trilogy.
De hecho, yo encontré tres elementos que creo que son básicos a lo largo de la novela a través de tu protagonista. La mujer como protagonista de su propio deseo, como bien lo decías y lo platicábamos anoche, ya es una posición donde cambia, ya no es el hombre que impone, ya no es el hombre que establece las reglas, sino la mujer va buscando y desarrollando a lo largo de la novela. Y además los ejemplos que ella maneja con Ana y algunos otros personajes. La mujer va, aquí le llamamos el empoderamiento de la mujer, y es en un asunto de la sexualidad. Otro elemento que yo encuentro es la libertad de la mujer para ejercer su sexualidad sin culpas. Es muy interesante cómo pasa Catherine, cómo va avanzando y de pronto se va encontrando. De hecho, fíjate, a mí me gustó mucho una cita, a ver si la recuerdas. Lo siguiente: los caballeros de brillante armadura solo existen en las películas y no viene con retraso. El mío me ha estado mandando mensajes de texto en vez de llamarme por el simple gusto de oír mi voz como hacía antes. ¿Qué opinas de eso? Es tu...
I'm not the girl that watches, or woman that watches romantic comedies and thinks that's the ideal man. Unfortunately, I think there is this ideal, sorry, I want to turn this off, it's a little bit distracting. I think there is an ideal that exists throughout society, and we project those ideals onto our ideal partners, or the people that we wish to be partners. So Catherine is a protagonist, while she has her own experiences that are unique to her. I wanted some of me to shine through in her opinions, and that is one of them. It's very simple.
Pero creo que refleja perfectamente al personaje, cómo va evolucionando dentro de este segundo volumen. Oye, a ver, ¿tú estarías de acuerdo con esta frase que yo creo que sí ayudaría mucho a cambiar el mundo? A partir del el planteamiento de la sexualidad, de la libertad, de los límites y demás, o de los no límites, hay una frase que de pronto se escucha mucho: ¿tú crees que el mundo está mal cogido? Hay tantos conflictos sociales, humanos y demás. ¿Seríamos más felices si supiéramos coger mejor o estuviéramos bien cogidos?
100%. I think so, I guess. I was listening to Gore Vidal earlier, a speech he gave, and his idea and on prohibition against the people are very interesting to me, and sexuality is one of those things that always comes to the forefront of that conversation. So sexuality or gender is something that has always sort of been used against the people, and I really agree with that too. So get rid of prohibition because we've got a long way to go.
Sí, estamos años. Mira, como historiadora, a mí me llamó mucho la atención también una frase de la novela, y aquí habría que buscar nuestros referentes. El Marqués de Sade fue parcialmente responsable de la Revolución Francesa. ¿Por qué?
He didn't follow the rules that he was expected to follow. And I think, although I can't do it in the same way, I inspire people to not follow the rules.
Ya escucharon aquí, ahora que estamos en la cuarta transformación, no hagamos caso a las reglas. Bueno, la novela es propiamente una novela erótica. Yo creo que ahí sí está perfectamente definida, detallada. Como decía, pero yo creo que la otra parte que tú desarrollas en tu novela es la crítica social. Hay varias frases que me llaman la atención porque tú ya estás totalmente, y dentro de tu texto desarrollas todo el asunto de redes sociales, las selfies, por ahí están googleando en la protagonista que además es periodista. De pronto te reflejas tú en ella cuando escribe, es decir, está investigando, está medio desesperada, me la imagino perfectamente llena de papeles, archivos. Se nota una ansiedad ahí para poder desarrollar en un momento dado alguna.
What was, I understood most about what was the actual question?
Básicamente, tú como escritora, es decir, atraviesas esos procesos también de angustia, de la página en blanco terrible que es abominable, el que te sientas delante de la computadora y no sale. ¿Tienes musas o musos?
For sure that happens. I think that's why I enjoy the process of research so much, because it allows me to sort of get out of my head and compile inspiration and ideas for what I'm developing. That's, I guess you could say, the easy part or the fun part, the entertaining part. But actually taking all of that and developing characters is very daunting, yes. Extremely. So I try and give myself time to take what I've researched and then get outside of the computer and close it and turn off the Wi-Fi. Because otherwise you just go down a rabbit hole and procrastinate. I'm very good at procrastination.
Como buenos escritores. Fíjense, les voy a leer un párrafo también que habla de lo puntillosa que es la crítica social dentro de la novela. Insisto, la parte erótica creo que esa es perfecta, es muy redonda, vale la pena el acercamiento desde el primer volumen, pero yo creo que hay cosas que uno agradece porque además de toda esta parte erótica, y mientras nos das un respiro entre un momento y otro, haces una crítica muy mordaz de la sociedad. Por favor, chequen esto porque ahorita lo acabamos de ver en el Congreso, buscando el bastón para la selfie, las selfies al presidente entrante. Dice en su novela Sasha: los palos para selfies son nuestros nuevos bolígrafos, con los que capturamos nuestras vidas a través de fotos en vez de con palabras. Ahora lo compartimos todo online para que las demás personas lo vean y lo supervisen. Guardamos poco de nuestra intimidad cuando en realidad deberíamos mostrarnos más cuidadosos que nunca. Acoso cibernético, cibersexo. ¿Para qué escribir tus pensamientos cuando puedes grabarte y subirlo a la red para que se haga viral? Convertirse en una estrella. No hace falta talento, solo hay que hacer algo escandaloso y la gente te prestará atención durante unos minutos. La pregunta que me gustaría... Tú eres una figura pública, estás en redes sociales, Twitter, Instagram. ¿Cómo lo afrontas? ¿Cómo puedes mantener tu espacio de intimidad y de privacidad cuando ya es, realmente está viralizado?
It's very difficult. It's funny because while I am known and have a reputation for being for not caring so much what the public thinks and stepping into a career, and when I mean a career, I mean my first career as a public persona, which is porn. I still maintain control. So, although it was free and crazy to some people, I was doing it on my terms. And the same goes with my photography. During that period, I was shooting a lot. And I was documenting taking selfies before selfie. The word selfie was an addiction. But I was doing it as an artist, and I was conveying my ideology through that period of my life. And just like Catherine, now I'm in another period of my life. And I've gone through experiences and changes, and I've used those to help develop the next creative thing that I want to do. And so yes, I have my phone, that's why I want to take a picture, you know, of all of you to remember this moment, but I just feel a certain level of disgust when I watch and look at stories and Instagrams and Facebooks, because none of it's real anyways. And I think in the future, privacy will be the greatest currency, really. And so I do, I'm in a steep. It's very difficult for me to just post. For me, if I post something, there's always a movie behind it, and it's not a cute picture. Maybe sometimes it's a memory or to help, you know, share information, like I'm coming to visit Guadalajara. That's very basic, but I always try and have a meaning and a purpose behind what I'm doing, not just presenting myself as an empath that can relate to everybody. So I see right through that. It's really.
Oye, es una novela que desde luego no es feminista, pero sí pones a la mujer en un lugar distinto, es decir, como el epicentro o el centro de toda una constelación de historias alrededor de la que se construye Catherine. ¿Te consideras feminista?
Sorry, cut out at the end. Can you repeat that? I've struggled with identifying as a feminist my entire life. And that is because I don't think the general way people think about feminism isn't my ideal of feminism. And I consider myself a postmodern feminist for that reason. And I think one of the great things about social media right now, and one of the positive things, which I always try and look back at the positive or reflect on the positive, is that I feel women that I can relate to for the first time have a platform to the masses. And those women, you know, I think the reason it's been difficult for me to identify as a feminist because that word is often identified with what we now call white feminism. And white feminism has never benefited. White feminism has never benefited women like myself who have decided to take a different path that often leaves people ostracized from their communities. And now I really feel like this is the next generation of postmodern feminism, which is really strong and really powerful and represents women that need to be heard and women that have been overlooked throughout history. So yes, I'm a feminist, but not your feminist.
Bien. Catherine es tu personaje. ¿Hay algunos rasgos tuyos ahí o nada que te identifique o sí, en algún momento te metiste en ella? Bueno, generalmente uno como autor se va metiendo en sus personajes, pero aquí en particular con Catherine o alguno de los otros personajes, Ana, por ejemplo, que la puedes mencionar desde el principio, y Ana, esta mujer que es desaparecida y que además haces muy bien antes de la tecnología, ¿no? Lo que hacía ella, no había selfies, no había Google, no había redes sociales, entonces a mí me parece que hay una buena evocación ahí hacia lo que perdimos en el camino, ¿no? ¿Alguno de estos personajes femeninos o en todos hay algo de ti?
Definitely. Especially with Catherine, I'd like to say that my spirit is within Catherine. The trajectory in which I gave her is based on my own trajectory in a way. Meaning that she started off in the first book, the first Juliet Society, discovering herself, not just her sexuality, but discovering she had these ideals of what a man was supposed to be, and she went through fire and came out of that fire and discovered discovered who she was as a woman. It gave her more confidence, and in turn that confidence will allow her to grow throughout the books, and that's definitely based on her own experiences. And knowing that in life, you don't get everything that you want. When you work very hard at things, sometimes we end up in places that we didn't know happened. So yes, I definitely applied those life experiences to her, but throughout the book, I'd say the actual acts and scenes, I guess you could say, are fictional.
El cine, hay muchas referencias y es una de tus pasiones. ¿Cómo vuelcas todo esto, toda tu pasión por el cine dentro de la novela? Porque te dedicas varias páginas y se ve que además estás totalmente empapada, conoces, y se ve que es una de tus pasiones igual que la música. Pero en este caso el cine, ¿qué es para ti hoy el cine?
We were talking about this last night as well. I think all art forms right now have become so commercialized and so dependent on the almighty dollar that it's a struggle for any writer, any filmmaker, any director, any actor, any musician to be true to their art. And so what is cinema today? I think about that all the time. I live in Los Angeles, so I'm surrounded by the industry. But television has taken over, and there's really interesting content being produced, but it almost feels like cinema is a fetish for Catherine. Just the way she's discovering her sexual fetishes. So it's just another fetish to add to the novel. And I feel that in this moment in time, we, like Instagram, like Facebook, this, right? You open your phone, you don't even know what you're looking at anymore. And I feel that's kind of what's happening with television and cinema. We're just addicted to the next thing. So we're always left with a cliffhanger. We're never left with a resolution. And I don't like that. I don't know. I think, in all forms of art, it's just a difficult time, and hopefully artists can continue to have their stories told. But I was listening, I caught like a clip of this director, Ken Loach. This is, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, maybe more. And he said he was glad, his opinion was that cinema cannot create a social change. And he was using Clint Eastwood as an example because of recent political events that Clint Eastwood was involving himself with. It's not really funny. I don't know if there's idealists in me that doesn't want to agree with that. And I still struggle with that. But I do hope that we can see a turn, and I think, again, that is a positive side of technology, that people have the tools to access things, to create things, rather. But at the same time, it also allows for a lot of people who might have large expendable incomes to just buy all of these tools because they're relatively inexpensive now, and not really care about the art behind it or the message behind it.
¿Te has imaginado tu trilogía llevada al cine? Y ya que me preguntaron un poco más profundamente, yo creo que a lo largo de estos dos volúmenes que yo he podido ya echarles lectura, desde luego te provoca sensaciones, te provoca sentimientos, o sea, verdaderamente sí te vas sintiendo dentro de la novela. ¿Tú crees que podría trasladarse a la pantalla grande o se perdería ahí mucho? ¿O te gustaría también esa serie?
To kind of add to your last question, but it goes in. I think cinema has lost its danger. There's nothing dangerous about it anymore, and that's really frustrating. So that's an interesting thing about television. I think you can do more, because right now cinema is so safe. Even when you're talking about taboo subjects, I don't think there's a way you can depict Catherine's experiences in a film today where the masses won't get to see it, because nobody wants to finance those things, because financing those things is a risk people don't like risk. So that's unfortunate, but I do see it potentially as a television series. I think right now we do live in a special time where people are taking more risks with television and putting more money into it, but not being so afraid about the content within it.
Yo ya quiero concluir para que pase el micrófono aquí a tus lectores y a tus seguidores, porque creo que vale la pena, que imagino que van a tener 17.800 preguntas que hacer. Yo nada más te preguntaría una última, con la que tú inicias tu novela, y que me gustó mucho cómo en el prólogo lo planteas, que es como el preámbulo para que Catherine asuma o no algunas cosas. Si dispusieras de la clave para develar los secretos del mundo, ¿tú cómo la usarías?
And sorry, what was the question?
Te hago la misma que tú escribiste. Si dispusieras de la clave para develar los secretos del mundo, tú preguntas, ¿no querrías usarla? Yo te pregunto, ¿cómo la usaría Sasha Grey?
That is I wrote that because I'm an idealist at heart. So I guess you could also kind of call me a little bit of a hippie. My father was definitely a hippie, you know? So there's this idealist in me that wants to believe in the goodness of people and truth and rights and freedom. But are you, or am I, willing to sacrifice myself and my comforts to find those truths and to speak on those truths? I don't know. And I think that every day can almost be considered a challenge. So I right now would say I would want that key. But I think that key would piss me off.
Yo estoy muy contento de estar a tu lado, Sasha. Vamos a pasar el micrófono y le agradezco a Random que me haya permitido aquí presentar. Yo dije, yo quiero presentar a Sasha Grey cuando me reuní con Ricardo Cayuela y con Fernanda. Ellos te lo pueden asegurar. Y me da mucho gusto esta charla, la charla de anoche. Y bueno, pues ahora tu público que pregunte, aquí está Sasha para lo que ustedes quieran preguntar y saber. Y tenemos 14 minutos porque ya saben que aquí en la Feria del Libro nos sacan exactamente no tienen que salir corriendo al stand. Bueno, luego pueden salir corriendo a comprar otros libros, pero aquí va a ser la firma afuera, ahí es mucho más agradable el espacio. ¿Qué va a ser? Aquí en el salón. No, está perfecto. Entonces, si quiere, ¿quién tiene preguntas?
Buenas tardes a todos, querida Sasha. Un gusto conocerme. Me tocó la primera presentación de tu libro, la ocasión anterior. Soy tu seguidora desde los videos y también de tus libros. Estoy aquí, soy afortunada. Nos han pasado cosas increíbles para llegar aquí. Vengo de Durango, del norte. Y mi pregunta es, yo siempre veía ese más. Sí, en los videos, en el libro lo noto. ¿De dónde sacas esa fuerza? Parece más. Me mueve mucho. Entonces, bueno, esa es mi pregunta.
Thank you very much. sounds like a terrible cliche, but I don't know anything else. Last night I told a story about when I was a kid, I would purposely on a bicycle with friends. And we would purposely try and get lost because we wanted an adventure and we wanted to discover something new and we wanted to get out of our neighborhood. And I think that kind of sums it up. That sums up my personality. Sometimes it's very difficult, again, kind of going back to social media. We all present the best versions of ourselves, right? So would I come here dressed in sweats and no makeup and arrive here? No, I wouldn't do that. So, we see and we display the best versions of ourselves. But there's a lot behind the scenes that I don't reveal, and that is that privacy that I want to keep. I don't display all my failures, but those failures make me who I am, and those experiences make me who I am, and they make me a stronger person. So I think throughout all the failures, that kind of drives me to try more and do more, and seeing injustices and seeing people that maybe don't believe so much in the art that they create. While that can really disappoint me, it makes me want to fight for other people that still have faith in that.
Pregunta. Miedo.
Hello. Bueno, en inglés o en español.
Oh, let's see.
Well, my question is, what's next to you? Because you have arrived in all multimedia, like video games, like Saints Row, movies, open windows. What's next to you? You want to take a rest or something?
No, I rest too much. I want to do more. I'm developing a few new projects, a few new ideas as a writer, and working on a lot of new music as well. New stuff, actually.
That will be great. Thank you.
I will do it in English too.
Okay.
I always thought that the difference between erotica and pornography is political, never in terms of content or in terms of aesthetics. Would you agree with that?
Definitely, yes, 100%. That's why that quote is important to me. Again, as I said, I don't always display my failures, but I can say throughout the creative process and projects that I've taken on, and this is just an example of my own experiences, I've come up against criticism, while at the same time there have been other male artists in a certain show or a certain gallery who have, in my opinion, extremely pornographic views, but because they didn't come from the adult industry, somehow it's not considered pornography, it's considered art. And I always approached my pornography as art, and the things that I've done after that, or along the way simultaneously as art. So yes, I do think it's extremely politicized, and that was something that I was very important to fighting during that time when I was still in the industry and even now.
Hello.
Hello.
You were very original in many aspects, a true artist, I would say, because you don't follow the normal path, and I think that's amazing. In many ways, I think you're a role model for modern women, and I was just wondering, as role model, people maybe won't go that route as you do, but many people will, because you're just different, an example for this new generation. So, what would be your what would you say to young people that want to emulate and live freely, because you are a true artist? In every aspect that you've done, you look to be original, and that's hard to do. So what would be your advice to young people to follow that?
It's difficult because, as I mentioned also yesterday, I don't know if you were there, but I never really considered myself a role model until, I'd say, about 5 years ago when I went on my first book tour, and I went all around the world and I met people of all ages and all genders and all races. And then I realized what responsibility I had. And so yes, maybe people won't take the same path. I guess I could say whenever I get down, whenever something becomes difficult for me, I just look at the people that came before me and the sacrifices that I made, and I think you have to understand that within art there's always sacrifice, and you just have to make that choice and try and maintain a good group of friends and a good group of peers, have people that you can bounce ideas off of. I really work well in collaborating, so I feel like, but I'm good at being solitary as well, so I feel like I actually sometimes have to force myself to open those doors, but whenever I do, I feel very strong and empowered. So I think having those relationships is extremely important when you're an artist, and being able to stay contemporary as well.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Mi pregunta es, tú como artista has tenido la oportunidad de viajar a distintos países, conocer distintas culturas. ¿Has encontrado, digamos, pues distintas posturas a tu trabajo? Por ejemplo, aquí en México estamos cerca de Estados Unidos, conocemos en gran parte su cultura, pero hay culturas más distintas. ¿Has encontrado resistencia y has aprendido algo de esa resistencia? Es decir, de la reacción de distintas culturas a tu trabajo.
I feel the most reaction from my own country. And it's funny because, like you said, there's a lot of similarities and we're very close, Mexico and the United States, geographically. And America is supposed to be a very Christian, it's a very Catholic country. But I don't feel the same persecution in Mexico that I do in my own country whatsoever. And I feel like that's a reflection of how, if you are a religious person, where people should act. They don't judge. And in America, we're very judgmental.
Tenemos 4 minutos para una última pregunta. ¿Alguien? Allá por allá atrás. Recuerden, el libro está aquí a la venta afuera. Sasha va a firmar. Así que aprovechen. Que venga la fila. Pero ahorita que termine.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Salvador, por acá, here. Okay. Esta pregunta yo creo es más por el placer de dirigirme hacia ti y del placer de que me escuches. I need that for you. ¿Cómo es el proceso en el que tú realizas videos pornográficos? ¿En qué momento decides esa transición de decir, bueno, yo quiero un cambio para mí, me quiero dedicar a otra cosa? ¿Cómo lo tomas? ¿Cómo lo afrontas?
I think the helpful thing is that along the way, I was So while one thing was more publicized than the others, having the outlets gave me a lot more confidence. Being in business meetings as a woman who's very young and dealing with ageism gave me a lot of confidence. So by the time I decided, it wasn't really an immediate decision actually. I had just been working on other things. And I don't know, I would say over the course of 6 months, one day I realized I hadn't actually done any of it. And I looked at my schedule and all of these other things that I wanted to do that I laid out. And I decided, maybe this is a good time now. I never expected that I would quit after only 3 years. I was 21, like the Black Flag. So, yeah, I think having those other outlets really gave me that confidence. And yeah, it was 2009. And I think the industry was also going through a big change at that moment. Things had changed drastically only within 6 months, really. And the ultimate deciding factor was really a failure. Sorry for those of you that know the story, maybe it's boring. But, I had created a production company where I was producing and directing films, but I wanted to make art films that had sex in them. And I had a disagreement with the person I started the company with, and I invested almost a year of my time sleeping 3 hours a night, and I like sleep. And it was a very big failure. And so after that, I looked at all of these other things that I have going on and that I was developing, and I said, you know what, I don't know if I have it in me to start this over when I have all of these other opportunities. And that's how I decided. But I didn't tell people, because for me it wasn't like this important decision that I had to tell the world. I didn't even tell anybody until probably a year and a half, 2 years later, and people were just asking me questions. And I realized it's like a very old question, and I can't really relate to that because I've now been out of this for 2 years. And so I casually mentioned that, and then that's sort of how it publicized, I guess.
Pues queremos agradecerle su presencia. Felicidades, Sasha. Qué bueno que hayas asistido en México. Muchas gracias. Y aquí está la